Keenan Allen is going to be the best friend for a young quarterback like Caleb Williams. And the Chicago Bears got great value in the trade with the Los Angeles Chargers for just a fourth-round pick.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1. You can follow the podcast on all of your favorite social media platforms at Locked On Bears, including the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. On the show today, we'll be joined by David Drogemeier from Locked On Chargers to get the scoop on Keenan Allen, what the Bears are getting in their new receiver, how much Keenan Allen still has left in the tank, what kind of value the Bears got as a fourth-round pick, why the Chargers were even willing to trade Keenan Allen, and what kind of timeline we should expect for his short Bears career as he gets close to now age 32 next month. Then when we're done with David, we'll turn our attention back to the Bears and look at the wide receiver position as a whole and what's still left to do. Even with DJ Moore and Keenan Allen under contract, the Bears could still use a little bit more, but does that mean you don't take one with the 9th overall pick? Does that mean you don't sign any more free agents? How the Bears should address the rest of the wide receiver position from here. But David has spent a long time covering the Chargers, has seen Keenan Allen's whole career, and he's got a bunch of great insight for us on what we can expect and why he's really going to be a great fit in this Bears offense with Caleb Williams. So let's jump right in. All right, joining us now on the Locked On Bears podcast is David Drogemeier, one of the hosts of Locked On Chargers here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Unfortunately, David, we got to talk about a sore subject for you guys over there in LA. I don't think anyone was happy to see Keenan Allen go, but Bears fans are really excited, and I think I get the impression from you guys that excited for good reason.
Absolutely. Should be a tremendous reason. I mean, Keenan Allen is just coming off of one of the best seasons of his 11-year career. I mean, we're talking 108 catches, 1,243 yards, 7 touchdowns, and still open like 7-Eleven all day long. I mean, it just didn't matter. What I think was even more impressive for me watching Keenan Allen this year is he was pretty much the only one out there. I mean, no offense to Quentin Johnston and, Mike Williams got hurt very, very early on. And Josh Palmer did some good things, but he also battled injuries. It was Keenan Allen, and then it was everybody else on the offense. But Keenan Allen's still a guy that knows how to get open, has amazing route running, like probably best in the league, in my opinion. Great release packages, and is very friendly to the quarterback. So Caleb Williams and Bears fans should be very excited and happy to have a receiver of that caliber that's still productive at this point in his career.
Yeah, do you get a sense for how/why he was able to still be that productive in a year? I mean, you mentioned there were other receivers being hurt. You get Brandon Staley fired during the season. Justin Herbert gets hurt. It couldn't get a ton more disastrous in terms of around Keenan Allen there, and yet career high in yards per game and another 1,200 yard years. Was there something? Was he just prioritized in the offense more? Why was this year even better than some of his previous years?
Well, I would say the reason why is because he was targeted more in the intermediate and deep parts of the field a lot more in this year and, last season as well than almost at any point in his career. He's always been a guy that's been very dangerous in the short to intermediate game because of how quickly he can get open and how, just crystal clear and clean and crisp his routes are. He's always had very strong hands as well. So he's always been able to get you first downs, be very friendly on third downs. That's always been part of his game, but he was used a lot more in the intermediate and deep parts of the field, which I think just because people thought that Keenan Allen didn't have that great of speed, which is true, that he wouldn't be able to be effective in the intermediate and deep parts of the field. And that's just simply not true because of that route running ability and that intimate knowledge of what defenses are trying to do, how they're trying to take away what he does. And they haven't figured it out at this point, 11 years in. And, for Keenan, he did get to play with Justin pretty much the entirety of the season. When Justin went down, Keenan pretty much they kind of shut him down for the rest of the season. So, the fact that he did that in 13, 14 games was truly incredible. He was really on pace to smash everything that he's done prior to, this season. He's still extremely effective, but used more in the deeper part of the field, which is why the numbers looked a little bit better this year.
So why did they trade him?
Yeah, they traded him. This was all about money, unfortunately. Keenan Allen's coming off of his best season. The Chargers were up against it with the cap, which not at the point to where when they asked him to actually take the pay cut. They had already restructured and asked Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa to take pay cuts, which they both agreed to do. And at that point in time, they were already well under the cap and had money to spend. So for me personally, I didn't really understand why they made this choice. I felt like Keenan Allen was still very productive, and there's reason to believe that he could still be productive for another 2 to 3 seasons. So I didn't understand the move right now. I don't know why they felt the need to make him take the pay cut when they could have easily housed his contract. And then if you look at 2025 for the Chargers, they have an unbelievable amount of cap space. Like, it's almost around $100 million in cap space. Obviously, there's a couple other contracts that need to be taken care of, and that number will obviously deplete a little bit. But even with that said, I just feel like this is something that didn't need to happen. Keenan Allen, to his credit, said, "Hey, I'm coming off the best season of my career. Why would I take a pay cut?" And I understand that. Like, I don't know why the organization felt like they needed to ask him to take that pay cut, especially after they already released Mike Williams, which saved them $20 million against the cap. So now they get rid of their number 2 and their number 1 wide receivers, and there's going to be a whole new wide receiver room pretty much next season for the Chargers.
Yeah, I would have thought, even if it's not a pay cut, if they could do some kind of extension and
that's what I was hoping for. Yeah, the extension made the most sense to me, Lauren.
Do you think some of that comes down to the age then?
Sure.
I don't obviously he's still performing at a high level, but you wonder how long he could go. Like, I don't know, what kind of timeline are you thinking in his head? Like, in Chargers, from a Chargers perspective, like, is it like, well, maybe we could get 2 more good years out of Keenan Allen, or like what's the number in your head where it's like, I think we can squeeze this much longer out of him if you had a new longer contract?
Yeah. So, he's under contract for, the next season and then one other one. So for me, I was looking at a 2-year extension because I feel like, Keenan Allen's game ages like a fine wine. I feel like he's still going to be able to be productive as long as he's healthy. But one of the things that new Chargers general manager Joe Ortiz said that kind of stuck out with me is, we want to make sure and move on from contracts before they hit that cliff, before they hit that drop off. And so I think a part of me thinks that went into this decision in parting ways with Keenan Allen, is trying to get out of it before the decline hits. But this is like I said before, this is a receiver that doesn't use the typical tools that deplete with age as much to get open and be productive.
This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at Gametime, the best way to get tickets for all of your favorite live events. Whether it's sports, concerts, live theater shows, comedy, you name it, they've got it all at Gametime, and it is my preferred choice for buying tickets to events. I buy concert tickets through there, I buy my sports through there because I actually save money using the Gametime app. They have all-in pricing, so I don't pay nearly as much in those fees at those other ticket sites for what I'm getting with Gametime. Plus, I can see my view from my seat, so I know exactly what I'm going to get. It's great. It helps me discover new events in my area as well and go to events I wouldn't have even known were going on. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem our code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. When we talk about this idea of Keenan Allen, getting older but not over that cliff yet, he's not a guy that relies on speed in that way, but have there been any signs of like, okay, maybe he isn't as fast, but it's not a problem because he never relied on the speed? Or do you see the injuries the last couple of seasons as something related to age, or is that all kind of independent?
The only thing I would be cautious against, at least for Keenan, is probably the soft tissue injuries. Not really this season as much. He dealt with a different type of injury, which was around his foot. But the season before that, he did have a lingering hamstring injury that took him out for about 9 games. So that was something that, obviously, with receivers as they get older, the legs is the most important thing to try to keep in shape and make sure that he's not going to be able to, not get on the football field, right? So as far as that's concerned, like that's really the only thing. As far as like the way he gets open, how he plays the game, I didn't really see any drop off at all. I mean, honestly, this is a guy that's still great hands, very friendly to the quarterback, and extremely productive. And like I said, I don't really see much reason for that to stop within the next couple of seasons. I think this is the perfect type of receiver to pair with a rookie quarterback because of how reliable he is, because of how smart he is, because of how well he runs routes. This is a guy that's going to make the transition from the college game to the pro game a lot easier for a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, I think there's a part of this injury story here that you've touched on it a little bit a couple times, but I want to make sure we hammer it home that this past season, right? I think it was listed as a heel injury. Earlier you said they kind of shut him down when Justin Herbert got hurt. Like, is it fair to say that like the injury this past season and the injury 2 seasons ago were different in terms of scale? And perhaps like if Justin Herbert had been healthy and the Chargers were pushing for a playoff spot, would Keenan Allen have played through it this season, or at least maybe not missed as many games as he did?
1,000%. Yeah. I mean, there's people around the organization that has talked to Keenan and also just talked about the situation in general that stated that if the Chargers were in the hunt, if they were in the playoff race, then Keenan would have been able to be on the field. So I think this is definitely more of a situation to where they shut him down because there's no real point to put him out there for him to risk injury other than having any long-term injury concerns for Keenan Allen. So yeah, I would say that this is not something to be a very much concern moving forward.
I'm curious about his trajectory in LA. I mean, having been there for so long, I remember early on, he's the outside number 1 receiver, and a handful of years ago, they started playing him more and more in the slot, and now it's kind of splits time there. He's not a slot only guy by any means,
sure,
but just moves him around a lot more. How did that go? Like, what went into that, and how did that sort of change how Keenan Allen was used, and what effect did that have on his game?
Yeah, I think people think that Keenan Allen's a small man because of how well he runs routes. Keenan Allen is 6'3" and in about 205, 210 pounds. Keenan Allen is not a small receiver by any means, but they want to move him inside and utilize motion to be able to get him on the best matchup because obviously because of the way he runs routes, he gets doubled a lot. He's a guy that you definitely don't want to leave on an island as much, but the offensive coordinators here for the Chargers, whether it was Joe Lombardi or whether it was Kellen Moore this past season, started to utilize motion with Keenan Allen to try to get him off of those double teams, get him away from those spots, put him in the slot, put him outside, really kind of change around his locations to be able to not allow the defense to key in on what he's doing and where he's trying to go. So I think that was just in an effort to get more out of Keenan Allen and also to be able to free him up to give him more one-on-one opportunities.
I know the trade was kind of a surprise to you and a disappointment as well, but were you surprised at the compensation, a 4th-round pick? Was that more or less than you thought it might be?
I was expecting more, to be quite honest with you, just to be, when we're looking at, and I understand the fact that, he's 31, going to be 32 going into this season. I get that completely. But I also said that I expect him to still be productive for another 2 to 3 seasons in the NFL. And I think for me, at that premium of production, with the contract being, high, but not in the 30 million per season range, I think that production needed something more of like probably a 3rd-round pick. I'm not going to go second. I think that's probably a little too rich, but I was expecting probably somewhere around a 3rd-round pick. A 4th-round pick, I was a little upset about it. I thought that was a little disrespectful, just considering the season that he just came off of and what he provided. But at the end of the day, it is a 110 pick in the draft. It's still a solid mid-round pick, and that was the best offer that they were going to receive at least this year. Apparently, Houston offered them a 2025 3rd-round pick, but that wasn't enough to get the deal consummated. So, yeah, I was expecting a little bit more, but after you take some time to evaluate the trade without the emotion, without the fandom coming out, then I think it's solid compensation for a 31-year-old wide receiver.
Obviously, he's an all-time Charger, beloved, retired number, et cetera, et cetera. Do you
Yeah.
think he's a Pro Football Hall of Famer, or what more does he have to do between now and his retirement to really solidify, like, yes, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame?
I mean, obviously, it shouldn't have anything to do with this, but winning a championship wouldn't hurt. I mean, that's the only thing that's probably, that's not on his side. The Chargers have obviously never won a championship. And as far as individual statistics go, I mean, he has 1,000 plus yard receiving seasons, multiple 100 catch seasons. He's probably in the top 10 of almost every receiving statistical category for the Chargers. And, this is a guy who is still, able to add on to those stats. I think a championship is probably the only thing that gets in the way of him being a Hall of Fame receiver. I think he's one of the best receivers of his current generation.
Well, I guess both sides here will be rooting for Keenan Allen to win a championship in Chicago so that he can get into the Hall of Fame. David, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate the time.
Always a pleasure, man. Good luck to Keenan over there.
This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, there is no cap on that 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th, so get started at Robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024 validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from date of first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer. Now the Chicago Bears have one of the best wide receiver duos in the NFL with DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. And it's hard to ask for a lot more than that, but the Bears do still need more than that. They've got other wide receivers under contract, but not guys that you want to have to rely on in big roles, and it feels like you're lacking that true number 3 receiver. And in the modern NFL, you need that number 3 receiver quite a bit. New offensive coordinator Shane Waldron is going to use a lot of multi-tight end sets, so it won't be as critical. I mean, in some ways, Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett will be your number 3 receiver or your number 3 receiving threat, but you still will need a number 3 wide receiver that's not just Tyler Scott or Velus Jones. The Bears re-signed Dante Pettis, an old friend, back, but again, these are special teams kind of receivers more than anything. I think Tyler Scott can keep developing and could be a number 3 wide receiver someday, but I don't necessarily want to go into 2024 counting on him to be the number 3 wide receiver. I want to aim higher for my rookie quarterback, presumably Caleb Williams. Fortunately for Ryan Poles, there's still some quality receivers left in free agency, and you don't need them to be a 1,000-yard guy. You don't need them to be top of the market wide receivers here. You're just looking for a guy who can be that complementary option when Keenan Allen and DJ Moore are both going to be going for 1,000 yards. They're both going to be aiming for, shooting for, working towards 1,000 yards this season. And so your number 3 receiver is not. I mean, this is a guy you're looking for 600, maybe at best 800 yards out of this guy, but realistically more like 500-600 yard type receiver. So it doesn't need to be an expensive player, and that's probably good because this year the Bears cap hit from Keenan Allen is $23 million. I think it's going to go up a little bit, and then DJ Moore is costing you about $16. So combined, you're looking at about $30 million in 2 wide receivers. You don't necessarily want to go into the market and then spend another big contract on another receiver, like a Tyler Boyd, or I think technically, as I'm recording this, Odell Beckham is still out there. That's not what we're talking about here. Maybe Josh Reynolds from the Detroit Lions, who previously played for the Los Angeles Rams with Shane Waldron. Although I think Reynolds was expecting a contract, that's not veteran minimum. You're talking $5, $6, maybe $7 million a year. But I think the longer free agency goes, the lower that price gets. So if you get him for 2 years, $8-9 million total over those 2 years, I mean, I would be on board with that. It's still a lot to invest at wide receiver when you already have DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. But we do have to keep in mind that Keenan Allen, as exciting as he is and as great as he is only under contract for now for this upcoming season. He is set to be a free agent a year from now. The Bears are only guaranteed 1 year of Keenan Allen. They could work out an extension. They could re-sign him after the season and make it more of a thing, but we can't count on Keenan Allen being here 3, 4, 5 years. This is a short-term option at wide receiver. And so that does not preclude me at all from drafting one even early in the NFL draft. Yes, you have DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, so you don't need to draft a wide receiver with the 9th overall pick. You will be just fine if the 9th overall pick comes and Marvin Harrison is gone, Malik Neighbors is gone, Rome Odunze is gone, and oh no, instead you have to take a top 10 edge rusher or a top 10 offensive tackle or trade down. Like you'll be just fine. But I don't think Keenan Allen and DJ Moore prevent me from still drafting one there. Like if one of those receivers is there, I'm not going to say no just because I have these two guys under contract, because Keenan Allen won't be here for long. It could even just be 1 year. And if you could pair those two with a top 10 pick at wide receiver, have Keenan Allen really mentor that, and in DJ Moore, really mentor that young receiver in year one. Don't put so much pressure on that young receiver to be a 1,000-yard guy right away as a rookie. And then Allen leaves next year. That first-round pick wide receiver becomes your new number 2/number 1 receiver the following season. That's a really nice pathway there. But the Bears now have the flexibility with Keenan Allen that they don't feel like they have to get that game-changing wide receiver with the 9th overall pick. Because you could just as easily wait until the Bears pick in the 3rd round or even the 4th round and take another wide receiver in that Tyler Scott type range where, you don't have to be great right away. It's okay. And that receiver can be the number 3 and rotate with Scott and some of the other guys here and build up a role. And then maybe by year 2, they're able to step into a bigger role in this offense, just as you're hoping Tyler Scott can slowly step into bigger roles. Like, I still think the Bears should draft a wide receiver at some point in this upcoming draft. I would be okay with it still being with the 9th overall pick, but they don't have to do it with the 9th overall pick, and that's the flexibility that Ryan Poles now has with Keenan Allen and DJ Moore under contract. It's the same thing in free agency. I'd like to see them sign another wide receiver, but they don't have to. I mean, I think they have to address receiver in one way or another, either with a free agent or a draft pick, but it doesn't have to be a big free agent. It doesn't have to be an early draft pick, but it should be a draft pick or a free agent that's a little bit more than Dante Pettis, a little bit more than Velus Jones, a little bit more than Tyler Scott. Because, by the way, none of this has to preclude Tyler Scott from continuing to develop and build into a bigger role. Like, ideally, Scott gets better, another rookie wide receiver gets better, and that's your 3 receivers for next year. Moore, Scott, and whatever rookie you draft this year. Like, this can all be part of the process. You can never have too many good wide receivers, and you can never over-invest in that position. Like, give Caleb Williams as many great weapons as possible. None of this stops you from doing so. And all it does is give him even more options. And we heard from David about how Keenan Allen is really going to be that nice complementary piece for him. You could go out and get another like big-bodied receiver if you want more of a possession guy to pair with Moore and Keenan Allen. You could add another speed receiver if you want another vertical threat to pair with Moore and Keenan Allen. Like, you've got some flexibility here, and you can never have too many of them. So I think the Bears are sitting in a really good spot where Ryan Poles has given himself options. He could take the receiver at 9. He could trade down from 9. He could take a receiver later on. He could sign a receiver now. He could skip the receivers in free agency. He doesn't have to get desperate to say, I got to land Tyler Boyd right now because we're just not going to be able to get any receivers. I got to go overpay for this guy. Or I got to move up from the 9th overall pick to go get a receiver in the 1st round of the draft because we got to get one of these receivers because we just need more receivers. Like, no, we can slow it down, take a deep breath, and get really excited about one of the most dynamic wide receiver duos in football. And when you combine them with Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett and then DeAndre Swift in the backfield, is a great set of skill position players that presumably Caleb Williams will be coming into this season. Really excited about what's going to happen with Keenan Allen. Excited about some of these other Bears free agents as well. We talked to David Drogemeier from Locked On Chargers today. Later on this week, as we keep things moving, we're going to talk to Tyler Rowland from Locked On Titans about Kevin Byard coming in and what we should expect from another older player coming to Chicago at the free safety position. We're going to talk to Louis DiBiase from Locked On Eagles to get a sense of what DeAndre Swift is going to bring in this Bears backfield as well. And we'll get his perspective on Kevin Byard, having spent some time in Philadelphia this past season. So we're really going to get to know these new Bears free agents this week. So make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to the podcast, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Of course, if the Bears make any other big free agent signings or trades, I guess, at this point, we'll be right here to break it all down for you and make sure that every single day you get another opportunity to bear down.